So Bitcoin is a pretty profound thing. But if we look at the mobile wave in the book I was writing, I was discussing the digital transformation of stuff.
Michael Saylor is a big investor who is very bullish on the coin. Despite the turbulence that Bitcoin has faced recently, Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, still starkly stands by and defends the alternative currency. He has a vision that crypto will continue to grow in its mainstream use and will help people overcome obstacles they may currently face. Join us today to hear what Michael Saylor's analysis is on how Bitcoin solves problems.
I think Bitcoin solves half of everything. Half of all the problems the human race face have to do with energy balance and economic balance and money, property, and energy. And Bitcoin represents a digital transformation of money, property, and energy. And that's profound. And if you sum up the total value of all products, services, and assets and properties in the human race, you probably got to balance it with an equivalent amount of money. So it's $500 trillion or a quadrillion dollars worth of stuff. And on the other side is the backhaul energy network to move it and to distribute it over time and over space and trade and transact. So Bitcoin is a pretty profound thing. But if we look at the mobile wave in the book I was writing, I was discussing the digital transformation of stuff, and especially the chapter of that digital transformation related to the dissemination of mobile devices. So what happens when software moves to its vapor state, when the software leaps onto a mobile phone and billions of people have the software in their pockets? How is that different than the software running on the internet or the software running on a PC computer? And if you think about software running on a mainframe, where a PC is kind of like solid state, and when the software gets to a laptop, it looks like liquid state, and when the software gets to a mobile phone, it feels like vapor state. And the significance of the mobile wave was now I could have software that I sleep with, right? And I drive with. So if the software is in the car, now I can conceptualize a digitally transformed map. And a digital map, first I take a Rand-McNally atlas and I dematerialize it so it's weightless. Then I carry it with me all the time. Then I put 10 million pages of satellite images on it, so it becomes a million times richer. Then I start to feed telemetry back in the system so I know the traffic on all the arteries in real time. It gets smarter. Then I start to plug in all the places you might go. Then I plug in whether people are there now. And then I start to tell you that these are the restaurants that people are at. Then I tell you that they're closed. And then I tell you can't get there because there's a traffic jam. And if you keep following that thread, eventually I put some AI on it and I tell you how to get there, which turn left, turn right. Then I tell you don't bother to go. Then of course, ultimately I build it into a car and you get in the car and you say, just take me to a nice place. Right. And the car drives you there. All of those things are logical continuations of the idea of a digital map, right? In the mobile era. Eat digital maps, digital music, digital books, digital education. All of those things created a profound increase in productivity for the human race. I could give 1 billion people $1 million worth of books for the variable cost of electricity. So what we had was a technology that allows us to give billions and billions of people education, erudition, insight, or joy, right? Take the idea of a Beethoven Fifth Symphony played by the Berlin Philharmonic and calculate the cost of that, record it, put it in an MP3 file, then send it to 1 billion people, then play it back 100 times a year. Mm-hmm. And now what you realize is that the physical cost, of course, to do that is well, if you do it physically with the Berlin Philharmonic, it would cost you all the energy of the human race.
Right.
In fact, if the entire human race wanted to do nothing but play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony for everybody, they couldn't do it. right? So the cost to do it in the physical world is prohibitive. And in the digital world, I can give everybody in the human race every minute of the day in the palm of their hand, every great symphony composed by everybody on that, right? Now, what's that worth? Well, that creates trillion-dollar networks of Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. So we create an entire $50 trillion economy through the digital transformation of information when we mobilize it. But that entire wave, digital music, digital maps, digital messages that created Apple, Amazon, and Facebook, it didn't include the transformation of digital energy. And the fundamental difference between digital energy and digital information is encapsulated colloquial in the phrase Satoshi solved the double spin problem. An engineer would say Satoshi figured out how to implement conservation of energy in cyberspace. The difference between me sending you the MP3 file and me sending you the Bitcoin file is the Bitcoin had $1 billion on it. And when I sent it, I lost it. But when I sent you the MP3 file and it had Beethoven's Fifth Symphony on it, I kept it and I could send it 1 million more times an hour. So information is non-conservative. Energy is conservative. Bitcoin represents conservation of energy. So what is the universe? The universe is made of energy. What is matter? Matter is energy. Right? You're a low frequency ball of energy. You'll last on this earth 100 years, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The human race is vibrating. On the other hand, go to a disco in New York City and, okay, you're walking into an establishment in a universe which is 14 billion years old. And, the universe is oscillating at 1 every 14 billion years. The sun's 4.5 billion years old. The Earth, about that. The continent's 400 million years old. The schist rock underneath Manhattan, somewhere between 200 and 400 million years old. The Hudson River, 20,000 years old. The building you're walking into, 100 years old. The company that runs the party, 10 years old. The party been lasting for 3 or 4 years. The customer experience is an hour. You're listening to music that's oscillating on audible frequencies while you see light. Everything is different frequency. Once you see it that way, what you realize is that Bitcoin is digital energy. What is digital property? It's low frequency energy. What is property? What is a house? It's low frequency money. I give you $1 million, you want to save it for 20 years. If you keep it in fiat currency, you won't have any money in 20 years. You put it into a house, you'll have it. But on the other hand, how fast can you vibrate a house? It takes you a decade, it takes you 2 decades to change a house back and forth. So the significance here is that if the digital information revolution was worth $10 to $30 trillion to the human race, or some number like that, the digital energy revolution is an order of magnitude more. Right? If I said to you, you have a choice. You can give up all the money in the world, everything you have and everything you're ever going to have. Or you can let me delete your photos off your iPhone. Which of them is more important to you? Well, Dayton's the birthplace of aviation, and I grew up right behind the Wright Memorial where the Wright brothers had their first flight, And I think the significance here is across a variety of dimensions. First of all, in 1903 they flew, and by 1969 we were standing on the moon. And so that's one of the truly all-time great technology S-curves. In 1900, every learned professional would have told you 1 million reasons why you can't fly. And they've been trying it for 1,000 years, thousands of years, failing. And they couldn't really fly until they made some critical breakthroughs. And the first was like the internal combustion engine and eventually aluminum. And you put an internal combustion engine with aluminum, and of course they need liquid propellants. So John D. Rockefeller, then the diesel engine, then the aluminum, and you've got the ability to fly. And then there's a rapid advance in in the human race's aviation capability. So that's the first observation. The second observation is it hit a wall in 1969. If you look at the space shuttle, the Boeing 747, the Global Express, the Gulfstream, they're all designed in the late 60s and the early 70s. And once we got to the 1975, we kind of were on a plateau where aviation technology was slowed to a crawl and started improving 1% a year, if that, maybe not even that. Right, the fuel efficiency of engines in the year 2022 might be 25, 30% better than 1975. But we lost that entire exponential advance. And at the point that the technology party was ending in aviation, and when I came of age and I studied aeronautical engineering at MIT, I elected to enter an engineering discipline at its peak. Right, when everyone idolized, right, what the aviation industry had accomplished for the past 2 generations. And yet, when I was at MIT, the space shuttle blew up, and it was almost apocryphal in a way, or symbolic that maybe that was the end of an era, and it was going to be slow growing. And I never worked. I never worked professionally in the industry that I was trained in the rest of my life. Because by then it became clear that the next great internal combustion engine was the CPU, the transistor giving way to the semiconductor, and Moore's law kicked in, and the cost of storage decreased by factors of millions, and the cost of compute power decreased by orders of magnitude. And advances in batteries and radios and communication networks increased by orders of magnitude. So the computer industry became a very fertile environment and jumped onto an S-curve and just started to advance rapidly from the point that the aviation industry, you could almost say 1969 is the end of that era. And
while there is great uncertainty about what's to come in the future, Saylor still encouraged crypto investors to stay invested with their holdings. What do you guys think? Comment if you think Bitcoin is going to stay for the future. Make sure to ape into the subscribe button and like if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, have fun cashing out.